Okay, so this is the Spinet piano that we got from the neighbor. I didn't start a video from the very beginning. I took a couple of photographs. I didn't really know much about it, but it was offered to us for free, and I would later learn that this particular brand ranges in price between free and about $400 for one in good working condition. So I'm just trying to get it to that point and maybe hopefully get a year or two out of it while we shop for piano. This is a Lester Betsy Ross is the model type. And here it is. I've gone through and mostly leveled the keys. They were kind of at all different levels. I didn't do a perfect job of it. I need to get some very thin spacers to finish that. And there were cracks in the bridge. I don't know if this will focus on this close. But I filled them with the resin and then super glue, and some of them were just hairline cracks, so the discoloration is just the discoloration of the super glue on the wood. And some of them, there's a missing string right there where the arrow is. Just get a new string in soon. You can see there's some strange spacing on the pins. Some of them are but they bend at greater angles than others. And I don't know if that should be like that or if it could be improved. I very nearly just pulled that top half of the bridge off. There's a seam right there, and made a new portion and glued it down, and then used the strings to figure out the placement of where the pinhole should be. And then use a drill press to drill new holes, or the hand drill. I guess you could do it that way too. But I decided against it. I didn't do it. I just filled the holes with the resin. Shrank a little bit. Some of them it didn't go all the way to the top edge, but it seems to be holding. And it had 60 years worth of dust in it and dirt. They were actually action figure toys under the keys. Oops. Where I'm at now is I'm ordering a new felt here cloth for the hammer rest. It's kind of deeply grooved. The dampers have some deep grooving, but they seem to be working okay. And then on this end, some of them buzz as you release the note. I haven't tackled that yet. All the hammer heads were deeply grooved, but I used some 50 grit sandpaper, like a belt sanding belt. Just cut a piece of it off and just kind of got it down to the area of the grooves. And then once the grooves were just there, visible, I switched to sandpaper sticks and just worked slowly. Some of them aren't connecting all 3 strings or all 2 strings, so I'm just using a mute to silence the strings that are working properly, and then just gently sanding with 180 grit sticks, reshaping, just touching up the tips of these heads of the hammer head so that the note actually sounds again on that string. The hammers were probably in better alignment before I started fiddling with it, but they were still having that problem. I don't want to mess with the hammer below distance until I get that felt replaced, because it's so deeply grooved. So when I get a new felt on, then I'll remeasure the hammer below distance and figure out if I need to adjust them. But I think I can adjust the whole thing, the whole gang of hammers at these points. I've hesitated to pull the whole action out because all these parts are pretty delicate, and I don't want to to rest it on these parts. So I'll have to build a bracket to set it on. Underneath all these elbows were originally, in 1954, they were plastic that has not survived. The modern replacement is this clear plastic elbow right here. We have one of them, and then there is a company, I forget the name, and they've gone back and they've made wood elbows also. So I was pleased to find that the elbows were all wooden when I opened it up. And all I've done under here is just go through with a canister sprayer for computer, for getting the dust out of computer keyboards, and a vacuum, and gotten the dust out of all of this. All these little straps seem to be in okay order. Some of these probably need to be adjusted in terms of this. I don't know. They're kind of loose, but I think that's to be expected. It's very thin, tiny little wood pieces there. The springs all seem to be working. Everything is, there's not much lost action. I've gotten that about where it needs to be, but probably could use some more adjustment. Once I know more about what I'm doing, then I'll tackle that. But I've just gone through and figured out like what seems to be an issue, and then I focus on that until that seems manageable, or at least is improved, and then whatever else jumps out. There's probably a more logical way to approach it, but at first I debated between spending any time on it and just pushing it to the curb and letting the trash people have it. This key probably is my biggest bit of work. You can see it's a little bit twisted. It was much more twisted, and it was very high. So I actually used a very small hand plane, and I planed it down and changed up the washers to get it more in line with all the other keys. But other than that, I haven't really tackled anything that's real surgery on the piano. Some of the hammers look like this one maybe needs to be adjusted its position, because it could strike more center. But that needs to be, I think I need to bend the shaft. And I see articles, guys saying to use a little propane thing, but I can't get in there with that, and I'm not going to set the piano on fire. I think what I can do is just use either a heat gun, just make a little metal tip for the heat gun, or a soldering iron, just make a little coil that I can rub up and down around the wood to soften it in the middle so I can get it to bend over. But that's it. The note plays and makes sound, so I'm not focused on that right now. Some of the pins I think might be a little bit loose. I haven't really had a chance to play with that. I'm not intending to do the first tuning. My hope is to have it tuned. I have a string on order. I'll have it tuned, and then I hope to maintain the tune. Right now, the next thing that popped up, it's been raining the last several days, and so there's a buzz. You can hear that. And I thought it was this hole for the damp thing, but I don't think it is now. But just a little bit of pressure in this area stops it. And those two screws, right here and here, obviously aren't original. So I'm guessing that's been a problem area. So my goal today is to tinker with that and see if I can figure out if that's where it's coming from, and then what to do to fix it. I figure if it is the cord, I'll just wrap the cord in either thin leather or some felt. Or if it's the screws, I'll try tightening them. And if it is those, then I'll loosen them and either work some glue behind them or a piece of felt or something to stop them from buzzing. I'm a little bit cautious of putting too much money into the piano or too much time, because my 5-year-old is learning to play piano, and they say that these have very easy key actions that don't help develop the strength for larger pianos. But then again, I've spoken to pianists who said that they learned on a very easy piano, and then when they transferred to bigger pianos, that didn't take them long to adjust. So I'm probably not going to worry about that too much. He's only 5, and we still have arguments over whether or not we're going to practice. So there's another reason why I'm cautious to just dump a bunch of money into a piano that will never be worth more than about $400. So at this point, the goal is just to make it sound a little bit more like an instrument, and then get it all cleaned up. It was built in 1954, and there's probably a nice heavy layer of nicotine goo on the wood. I've got it all wiped down except for these pieces here, and my rags are coming off dark brown and black with a distinct smell of cigarette. So that's it. This weekend's project. Finished damping these strings, and then, I mean not damping, but getting them all to sound, and then finish wiping down the case and get it put back together enough that the tuner, who will be here this coming week to install the missing string, can do a preliminary tuning, and then we'll take it from there. That's really, I'm not expecting the moon and stars out of this piano. I just honestly hope to get about a year out of it while we shop for a better deal. But I've heard some spinets on the web that all sound wonderful, so maybe it's possible to get this up to snuff. We'll see. I'll try. That's the goal. So I just want to show you how I'm adjusting these hammers. It's probably not the most scientific way. I'll find one that's doing it real quick. So we have the 3 strings here, and I'll test from the 2 sides. That damps the outside, the other outside. So now then, stick it between here, and this silences the 2 strings on the right of the 3. Helps to hit the right note. That one seems fine, good enough. Here's one. Sounds. Sounds. And then try those 2. A little bit muddled. See if we can find one's doing it worse. The piano hadn't been tuned for years when we got it, so it's way out of tune. But that's not even my concern right now. The concern right now is that not all these are even making noise. So there's an example of one. Right there. So I have the right string muted. Now I have the far left string muted. So it looks like it's the middle string here. Now I have the 2 left strings muted. I have the 2 right strings muted. So it looks like that's the issue right there. Oops. So then I get in here and I look at the grooving pattern, which is just still faint. I only sanded back till they were just barely visible, and then I go back and I just tinker with this a little bit, and I just sand gently. Try to keep the shape of the head barely touching up that surface, and I'm taking some off the ones that sound, because that side, the far left string, is not getting proper contact. So I'm just sanding a little bit off that side and then keeping the shape of the hammer. I really don't want to take off too much. I'm just trying to do as little as possible. It's a little bit better, right? And And I just keep going like that until they sound. Here's what I've done earlier. Until all of them sound. I didn't finish that. So I've started over there and I'm working my way this way now. I got lost. I stopped there somewhere last night. Here's a good example of what I'm talking about with the keys. Here's striking it like that, and then I'll mute the outside right string. Plays. Now I'll mute the outside left string. Plays. So we know the middle string and the right string play. Now I mute the left, the middle and the right. Sorry, the middle and the right. Sounds a little funny. So all I've been doing, if you hit it hard, plays better. Has that kind of a thunk. So, and you can play the note, and it still rings even though you push the hammerhead up. It should silence it. So this side is striking better across the two strings on the right than it is on the left. So I just kind of surfaced that area a little bit with a very fine couple of strokes. Just to reduce it by a little bit at a time, and try it again. Sounds better, and I can silence the string, focusing more on this right side of the key, of the hammer I mean. I'm not pushing very hard, and I'm just trying to keep it round. The hammers have already been kind of flattened off a little bit, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. I just get in there and do this to gently, gently, gently reshape that hammerhead and control how much you take off. And there, it sounds better. Here's a better example. I've already gone through and gone them all at least making some kind of piano-like sound, but here's one that's not as good. So this only strikes two strings. If I mute one, it plays. Mute the other one, it plays. It's out of tune, but when you press it, and you mute that one string, the good string, barely push it forward, and it should silence the string, right? So the string can still vibrate, which means that it's hitting this side of the hammer, right there, and that side is barely able to contact. So all I do is just take very fine sandpaper and just gently, gently, gently just rub that contact point, and then try it until it silences. See, when I press like that, it doesn't silence the string. It should, so I'll just keep sanding a little bit on that high side. Just gently, gently, a little bit at a time. This is 150 grit sandpaper. It's getting better. So it's that string right there. I'll just take a little bit off at a time and play with it until it sounds better. This double string back here that's missing one is vibrating also. So it even sounds like the note when it's played softly, and it mutes when I push the hammer up. So I'll call that good enough and move on. That's all I've been doing.